He's a professor at Al-Azhar. So everything he has done backed by very profound research on every area, on every word.
Rowan.
Okay, I think we're doing good. We've done 177 ayah, Surah Al-Baqarah. We've done 176, which leaves us with about 110 ayahs to finish Surah Al-Baqarah. And this is a long surah. Once we finish it, we'll be going with less ayah numbers and less shorter surahs, inshallah. So let us see, are we ready to start? Okay. Last time we finished with ayah number 176, and this time we're going to start with ayah 177. Ayah 177 marks a new section. The Quran is divided into 30 parts. Each part is divided into 8 sections. Okay, and this is one section, which means 1 out of 240 sections. We finished about 8 sections, and this is part number 2. So this will be the 9th section out of 240. You remember in the previous 2 sections, one of them was talking about the change of the Qibla, the change in the direction of prayer, from praying towards the Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem to praying towards Mecca, the Holy Mosque in Mecca. As we mentioned there, it happened in the 2nd year of Al-Hijrah, when the Prophet migrated from Mecca to Medina. And here, the ayah responds to the false claims that were made by the Jewish community then, who said if Muslims' prayer toward Jerusalem were acceptable, then their prayer towards Mecca must not be acceptable. And the opposite is true. They wanted Muslims to doubt and suspect the acceptability of their prayer because of the change of the Qibla. This is the background. Now we will understand why ayah number 177 starts off by saying, righteousness is not about directing your faces towards east or west. Instead, righteousness is to believe in Allah, to believe in the latter day, and the angels, and the scriptures, the books, and the prophets, and to give forth your money, or money in general, despite your love of it, to give it to the kin, those who are your relatives, the orphans, the destitute, which is a person who is very, very poor, and the wayfarer. The wayfarer, the traveler, somebody who's stranded and travels, he doesn't have means. And the beggar was sa'ilin.
Beggars?
Yes. And to set free a captive person or a slave. or a prisoner, and to establish prayer, and to give zakat, and to fulfill your covenant when you make a covenant, and to be patient, whether it is war or harmful things, or during the facing of the enemy, that you don't flee away. Then it says, those are the ones who have been true in faith or truthful in their faith, and those are the pious and righteous ones. Do you want us to break this ayah and explain each one of them? Or is it clear with that translation as is?
I think it's clear.
Okay, anybody else? So here, just to go over it very quickly, the ayah is answering the claims against the change of direction, saying righteousness is not really about turning east or west. Righteousness is about faith, it's about prayer, it's about charity, it's about looking after people around you who need you. It is about fulfilling your covenant and your contract, keeping your word, and paying zakah, and to hold on to your patience and perseverance, especially at tough times, at war times, at calamity times. That is the exhibit of good faith and trust in Allah, and those can only be found as basic characteristics of righteous and pious people. Okay. Next to this, ayah number 178, O you who believe, retribution in killing has been prescribed for you, meaning to seek justice in retribution when somebody is killed of your family or kin is the law. It has been prescribed, which means it is the law. Then it goes on, a free man for a free man, and a slave for a slave, and a female for a female. فَمَنْ عُفِيَ لَهُ, he who is forgiven by his brother,
Meaning the person, the
meaning the killer, when he is forgiven by the heirs, then he should follow good ethics and good manners and the norm, the decent norm, and to pay the fidya in good faith, to pay the expiation or the ransom or the payoff in good faith. Then it says, this is, meaning the expiation, the pay you make to ransom a person who has been killed, to pay off money instead of getting killed, if this is acceptable to the family. Allah saying, this is out of the mercy of Allah. Allah is making this allowance by way of showing mercy, because if everybody that kills is killed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, if the family forgives you and didn't want to kill you, and they agree to accept a pay, then make that pay in good faith. And then it says, he who then, meaning after this, transgresses or commits aggression, then to him is a severe torment. This is what he faces. Okay, let me put this ayah in a context of the Arab community and the communities all over the world. Revenge killing has been the norm because the human society used to be a tribal society, whether in the north or west or east or south. Everywhere people lived in tribes primarily. There were no big cities and high-risings and central governments, no nation states, nothing. So people used to have their norm as your tribe killed a child from my tribe. Then you have to deliver a child from your tribe for my tribe to kill him in revenge. This is justice. This is how it was. And it also was that a free man is killed, then my tribe will have to deliver to your tribe a free man to kill. If your tribe killed a slave from my tribe, then your tribe has to deliver my tribe a slave to kill, or a woman. So this is the context of a free man for a free man, a slave for a slave, and a woman for a woman. That is the context of this, okay? And as I mentioned before, Islam did not come to abolish all norms and all laws that man has ever known to set a new law. Islam came and found some things reasonable, and Islam kept it. Islam came to find some things unreasonable and unacceptable. Islam abolished it, made it haram, prohibited. Okay? And Islam brought new things that were not there at all, neither as customs or cultures, nor as religion. And Islam found it very much necessary to institute it. So Islam brought new laws, changed old laws, and kept old laws that were consistent with the overall principles of Islam. Now that raises a question. What does Islam really say about slavery? Okay? Here is what Islam did about slavery, because as I mentioned, Islam came to find slavery a big deal of a problem. So many other problems that were big deals, Islam cut it all at once. Like, for example, long wars and killings that tribes used to fight for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and people are still at each other's throat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, no, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Don't kill yourself, meaning don't kill each other. Not only that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instituted 4 months each year that are months in which war is completely barred, which are the months of Dhul Qa'dah,
Okay, sorry.
the 11th month of the lunar calendar.
Hold on, let me just restart that statement again so people
Sure, know what the context is.
know that it means.
Yes.
There we go. Okay, go ahead with the month.
Okay, so the 4 months in which war is prohibited are the 11th month and the 12th month of the Islamic lunar calendar, and the first month of the year, and the 7th month. So it's 11, 12, and 1st and 7th. Ramadan being the 9th month in the lunar calendar, then you can tell that 2 months ago, which is the month of Rajab, we are barred from engaging in a war or initiating a war. 2 months from now, Dhul Qa'dah comes, and Dhul Hijjah, those will be also months in which war is prohibited. I was trying to explain that Islam came to find long and prolonged wars as a norm. Islam set time when war is prohibited to give people a break and a chance to do business, develop community, look after families, even treat their injured and their sick and so on and so forth. Look after their animals and their land. Because people used to fight endlessly for 12 months a year. So Islam gave them a break. Okay? Islam also came to find that people used to marry 10, 20 women, 30 women, and not even to pay them dower or take care of them. They used to work them like slaves. Islam said, no, this is not going to continue. The maximum you can have is 4. So Islam did not start polygyny. Islam only regulated it. Okay? So Islam came to find problems. One of the problems Islam found is the problem of slavery, the problem of drinking alcohol. Okay? The problem of marrying women against their will. The problem of female infanticide, killing young girls. All of these were problems that Islam found, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instituted solutions for each of these problems. Some of them are problems that could not be allowed to continue, and people could just stop it, like killing each other. Okay? Or committing zina, right? So Allah instituted a decisive law that cuts off with these bad activities. But some other things, some other problems that Islam found in the society, not only in Arabia but everywhere else, is the problem of alcoholism. Alcoholism is addictive, and people get sucked into it. You start, sometimes you can bail yourself out, sometimes you can't. So Allah instituted a solution for alcoholism that is gradual. In the beginning, it made a statement saying that drinking and gambling are bad things. And then it says, another revelation, another ayah later on came to say, don't come to pray when you are intoxicated until you understand what you're saying, which means your mind starts to work properly. That was the second stage. The third step in prohibiting wine and alcohol was when Allah sent finally the decisive ayah saying that drinking wine or alcohol or any alcoholic beverages and gambling and casting lots. People used to...
Casting lots?
Yeah, I will explain. Casting lots is a method that people... It is like what you use in... I don't know what they call it in English. You know that small thing, Cupid thing that has number 1, 2, 3 dots, 4 dots.
Oh, dice?
Dice, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm missing the word. Like, instead of throwing a dice, like people do today in their gambling, people used to throw lots, which means small sticks that they would throw. If it stand in the sand, then they think that they can go ahead and do what they want to do. But if it does not stand, that means it's a bad omen. They shouldn't travel, or they shouldn't conduct this deal, things of this sort. So they used it as a source of sorcery, which means to discover what their luck is in the future. So the Quran came to say, casting lots, drinking wine, gambling are works of evil, so do not do it. Stay away from it. Adultery. The Quran says, don't get near adultery. I'm now trying to explain the process of prohibition and how it differs from one issue to another based on the nature of what is being prohibited. Adultery is a slippery slope. You look at somebody and then they look back at you, then it becomes a look of admiration, then it becomes a wink, a talk, a discussion, a handshake, an appointment or a date, and then things start to fall in. Okay? So, being what it is, a slippery slope towards adultery, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't get near, which means don't even extend a look of desire, let alone a look of lust to the opposite sex. Okay? So this is the way Islam prohibits adultery. Okay? Addiction to alcohol is a problem that requires weaning off to detoxify your body. That's why it took 3 stages to alert people that a prohibition is coming. Until the final prohibition came, people who had wine in their homes, they threw it in the streets. They were ready to get rid of it. But it was not prohibited all in one ayah, all at once. There were preface ayat that were sent down before to alert people. Now, let us go back to the issue, and the issue is slavery, as it's mentioned in the ayah here. Slavery was a problem of economy, dependency, social customs, and culture. It's a status to have slaves, but it is also an economic need. And in those days, people did not have their own independent means to set up homes and families and take care of their needs, and at the same time in the morning they go work in somebody else's field and come back to their home. So the economy was not structured on a business owner vis-a-vis a worker. Both of them are settled in their own places, and the business place is a third place where they meet, as the structure is today. So most people used to work in farms. And as such, because they were almost dirt poor, they needed a shelter, they needed a place. But the owner of the land also needed workers. So instead of quote unquote hiring a person, they would buy a person in return for providing for all of their basic needs: shelter, whatever food they need, clothing, transportation, everything a slave or his family needs is covered by the slave owner, who happens to be also the landowner. So the structure of the society was such that if you tell the slaves you are free, it is like you are firing a worker today. When you fire a worker, you throw them out of balance, because The work they have with you is the source of their livelihood, their income, and their provision for their needs. So freeing a slave in those days was like this. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instituted several ways. Number one, to set slaves free. So setting a slave free, as we will go over in the Quran, will prove to be a very effective way of getting rid of slavery, the structure of a human owning another human being, which most of the time came with a lot of abuse. Like some people today, they hire people to work for them. But instead of working 8 hours, they work 10, 11 hours a day. And instead of working in good work conditions, like if they work in a factory or something, they have some AC to breathe properly, or health atmosphere, or to clean the environment so that they are not becoming sick as they work. No, people are abused, okay? So slavery came with its abuse, as work environment today also may allow for abuse. Of course, industrial nations have instituted certain laws to prohibit some of the abuses, some of the excesses, but the work atmosphere is still that the worker is beholden to the owner of the business. Whatever the owner wants, the worker either has to oblige or risk losing their job. So Islam made setting a slave free as a punishment for false swearing, for swearing against your wife, okay?
What means swearing against your wife?
Meaning some people used to say, you know what, I'm not going to have a relationship with you. To me, you are like my mother, which means I'm not touching you. And some people use this as a punishment for their wife. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, you don't do that. And if you do, you have to set a slave free as a first priority punishment. If you can't afford it, then you fast 60 consecutive days. Look at the punishment. Okay? So there are so many instituted punishments for a lot of violations in the form of setting a slave free. So that has become, from the beginning of Islam, as a way of freeing slaves. Now, what about inducting slaves, new slaves? The Prophet ﷺ prohibited this by stating that anyone who enslaves a free person would never enter paradise or even smell the smell of paradise. And paradise could be smelled from a distance of 500 years. Imagine walking for 500 years to get to paradise. The smell of paradise gets to you. So he's saying anyone who enslaves a free man would never smell the smell of paradise. So he will never get even close. Okay? So inducting new slaves has been prohibited. Setting slaves free has been a wide gate for a lot of punishments. So if I own 10 slaves and I make only one mistake each year, my slaves, all of them, will be free in 10 years. And I cannot get new ones. That means what? All those who are slaved are going to be free. And that's exactly what you have seen, that slavery in the rural and Bedouin communities, even in the most desert arid areas like Arabian Peninsula, has come to a very bare bone minimum. Like nobody now can be proud to say, I have a slave. What people have today are called servants, which is a person you hire to serve you. Unfortunately, some people treat them like slaves, which is prohibited. But even a slave, Islam has instituted regulations to protect their dignity, to protect their humanity, to protect their health, to protect their right for knowledge and advancement. So Islam also instituted another institution to set slaves free, which is, if you bought me as a slave, and out of the pay that you pay me for my monthly service, I save some money, I can contract with you to pay you what you paid me as a price for my slavery, and I can set myself free. Not only a slave owner, when he makes mistakes, he should pay for his mistake by setting a slave free, but even if I am not a slave owner, and I made one of those mistakes, and the first recourse of punishment is to set a slave free, then I also will have to go to a slave owner, buy a slave, and set that slave free. So the gate for emancipation of slaves in Islam has been a floodgate. In few years, there were nobody actually owning slaves, except for the pagan idol worshippers of Mecca, who did not oblige to these rules. Until the conquest of Mecca, and the rules applied to everybody. So this is how Islam dealt with slavery. I'm sorry for digressing, but since we mentioned that the ayah is talking about a free man for a free man, and a slave for a slave, and a female for a female, in terms of killing retribution or justice, I felt that we need to explain how does Islam deal with the issue of slavery. Okay, that's Ayah 178. Ayah 179, it says, and in retribution, you, the believers, have life if you truly have reflecting hearts. And in this ayah, the Quran is saying, to save life, you have to institute a measure that deters people from killing. So Islam saw two ways. One is retribution, and the other is expiation, to pay off the heirs of the family of the person that you murdered. Okay? We explained those in ayah number 178, the ayah before the one we're addressing now. So, two ways. One is that one head for one head, that is retribution, or that I forgive your family or your tribe and you pay me ransom. Now, we understand that in the case of a ransom, that life is saved. But how is it in the case of killing head for head? How does this save lives? But this is what the Quran is saying. The Quran says, you can save life by killing one person for one person, if the family wants this kind of justice, they have the right to seek it. Okay? So I go to the judge and tell him, Judge, he killed I provide evidence and proof he is guilty of killing according to the judge's investigation. If he is guilty, the judge will offer me a ransom from the family of the killer, or that he is to be executed. If I choose, I can ask for execution. If I choose, I can accept the ransom and save this person's life. Okay? Now, the question is, how is killing that person becomes a lifesaver? Okay, let me explain this. When killing is taken easy, people go in the streets and shoot at each other at random. People don't feel safe. Do you think that forgiving killers will increase killing and bloodshed or decrease it?
Increase.
It will increase it, right? So in these cases, ransom is not a good option because people will kill and pay the money. So bloodshed will be even more. So in this case, to save blood and to save lives, retribution is the answer. Because it becomes a deterrent for the next attempt to kill somebody. The killer now knows that his life, his neck is on the line. So this becomes a deterrent. But if it is isolated incidents and people do not take this as a culture or custom, killing people with ease and paying the ransom, then maybe taking the ransom would actually be saving life, as we explained in the beginning. So the choice of the family should take in consideration the atmosphere of the society and how people look at killing and use money to kill and take out lives that are innocent. Now this is the issue of killing, retribution, and ransom. Ayah 180 is moving to another subject. It has been prescribed for you that if any one of you is about to die, when death comes upon one of you, if he leaves any wealth, to also leave a will. In that will, he should will out to parents, those who are closest of kin, according to the norm. This is a prescribed right and duty on those who are righteous amongst you. So as a sign of righteousness, when you are in the death situation, you are very sick, you know it's terminal, you know that death can come at you anytime, and you have wealth to leave behind, you have to will it out. Of course, Muslim scholars would say that this ayah has been cancelled by or abrogated by the ayah that talks about inheritance in Surah number 4, Surah An-Nisa. Okay? But the reality is, it is partly abrogated, but it is not fully abrogated. What do I mean by this? It's partly abrogated by the fact that those who have been given inheritance, prescribed inheritance in Surah An-Nisa, you cannot will out to them anything unless the heirs would allow it. So I have 5 children, and children are listed in the list of heirs with certain portions of inheritance in Surah An-Nisa. So I'm not supposed to give any one of them more than he or she deserves based on the text of the Quran. But let us say all of these children, 4 of these children, are all highly educated, developed professionals, they have careers and they have resources. But one of the 5 is handicapped. So he could not get the education that others got. So he doesn't have a professional career. And he needs some resources to develop his family and his livelihood. Okay? So Islam, according to some scholarly opinion, would allow the person dying to will that child a little bit more than what others will get by the rules of inheritance. And in reality, this is not unfair, and it doesn't come as a violation of the rules in the sense that Islam allows you to will out no more than 30% of your wealth. So if I have $300,000 in the bank, I cannot touch 200,000 of them. They have to be left for distribution to the heirs, as mentioned in the Quran. Children, parents, brothers or sisters, according to who deserves what in the list. Because these are not all the same division. They don't all get one and the same share. Those shares will come to talk to them if Allah gives us life in Surah An-Nisa in the ayat of inheritance. Okay? So I cannot touch the 200,000, but the 100,000, which is the third, the 33%, the third, I can will out. So if I have a sick child or too sick a father who would need a servant, somebody as a nurse to attend to him or her, and they don't have the means, I can give them their share. They will get in the 200,000, but I can will out to them some of the money from the 100,000. Because the Quran in general says that your kin take precedent and are to be given priority in your charity above and before anyone who's not a kin, who is not your relative. So parents and children come as first. Some scholars would say, no, we disagree with this reading, okay? Since they get from the inheritance what Allah has prescribed, they shouldn't get from the rest. But I do not believe, and many other scholars do not believe, that this is a consistent understanding with the other rules in the Quran that shows us clearly and very specifically that your kin deserve your charity before the outsiders. So if willing out is a charity, then they should come first. But this should not be abused, that I have $10-20 million, right? And I'm going to leave 66% for inheritance and then will out the rest to my heirs as well. That would not be a good faith application of the rule. Or even will it all to my relatives and leave everybody else outside. Okay. فمن بدله فَمَنْ بَدَّلَهُ بَعْدَمَا سَمِعَهُ, he who changes the content of the will after he has heard it personally. And the reason hearing is mentioned here is because people used to dictate their will to somebody who could write. So if the person dictating the will said, give this person that much, and I am writing the will, I change what I hear, then I am a sinful person. And Allah will punish me for changing the will of the person. Okay? Likewise, if the will was all made orally, like I am dying and I have 2-3 visitors, and I tell them my family is not at home, but if I die before they come, please tell them to give such and such person that much, and to give such and such person that much, to pay that much because it's a debt on me to X or Y or Z. And 3 people attend, right? They should apply what I say, even though if none of them could write it down. So the will may not be written, it may be oral, but it has to be kept. And if it is written, definitely there is no allowance for changing it or misrepresenting it to anyone. I think I will have to stop here, and next time, inshallah. No, let me finish one more ayah quickly. It says, فَمَنْ خَافَ مِنْ مُوصٍ جَنَفًا أَوْ إِثْمًا فَأَصْلَحَ بَيْنَهُمْ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. If anyone attending at the time of the will fears that what I am willing out is not fair, so I am willing out something and I'm saying, give X that much. Then you are attending, you tell me, no, Sheikh Shakir, this wouldn't be fair. X or Y served you more when you were sick, and this and this and this. Give that much more to this one and take some from what you are willing to this person. That kind of advice and negotiation is acceptable. But if my will is spelled out and I die, I pass away, nobody can change it. So if anyone is concerned about justice or injustice or wrongdoing in the will, and he reconciles between the person making the will out and the person receiving the wealth, then there is no harm, there is no guilt, there is no blame on the person reconciling between the two sides. Allah is oft forgiving, oft merciful. This will be ayah number 182, which we'll stop at, and then inshallah next time it will start us with the ayat on fasting.
All right.
Okay, I have an appointment to go to now.